From rescuing people to hostage situations to surviving in the wilderness, I'm Bob from World 5 List, and here are 11 of the most elite special forces in the world. Number 11. The GIGN. Now, if you look at history, the French have a very mixed association with warfare. On one hand, they did have a brilliant conqueror in the form of Napoleon, but they've also been known to surrender quite a few times. In modern times, however, the country of France is home to one of the most respected special forces in the world, the GIGN. Now, like many special forces groups, the GIGN were born out of a desire to stop tragedies from taking place. And in this case, it was the hostage situation at the Munich Olympics and a prison mutiny that got the French government's attention. They wanted a force that could both stop these threats, but also work to save lives, and thus the GIGN would be born. The group is trained in numerous disciplines, which include marksmanship, breaching tactics, negotiations, and more, and they've handled numerous situations to great effect and are praised for their quick reaction times, along with their ability to handle whatever's thrown at them. As of right now, it does have its own command center, with rotating groups of 20 different total operators that can be used at any time. Number 10. The KOBRA in Austria. Now, much like the GIGN, the EKO, or KOBRA, were formed in light of what happened at the Munich Olympics in 1972. This group, though, was made to be an anti-terrorism group and is one of the few groups that are semi-autonomous, for they report directly to the Austrian Federal Ministry of the Interior. The KOBRA do have a good track record, mainly pertaining to hostage rescue operations, but what really separates them from the rest of the pack is that they're the only group in history, including to this day, to ever foil a terrorist hijacking while the plane was in the air. It all happened in 1996, and it shows just how well trained the group is. Again, nobody's ever done that since. Number 9. GROM in Poland. Now, to be the best of the best, you have to pass the test. And the GROM, well, they're one of the groups that push their potential initiates to the limit, all in order to ensure they're ready for what's coming. In fact, their training is so thorough that apparently the Navy SEALs learned a thing or two from them. Formed in 1990, the GROM, which means thunder or thunderbolt, depending on your interpretation, would be made to be a counter-terrorism group of the highest order, rivaling even the Navy SEALs and the SAS. And in their time of existence, they've done numerous missions which range from stopping terrorists to fooling enemy forces into thinking they were fighting a much larger force. There are about 300 men in the GROM, and they have to pass a wide variety of tests in order to prove they're worthy, one of which is apparently a truth test. So I'll let you form your own opinion on what that particular test is. Needless to say, the GROM are tough, and they're ready for any challenge. Number 8. The JTF-2 in Canada. Now, here's another country you probably don't expect to see having an elite special forces group. Yet the JTF-2 have earned their reputation as one of the best special forces groups around via their exploits in the War of Afghanistan and Iraq. They were only recently conceived in 1993, but were trained with skill and precision in mind, mainly so they could counter terrorism if they needed to do so, and they have. Funnily enough, when they were deployed into Afghanistan to support the U.S. forces in their retaliation for 9/11, the Prime Minister of Canada actually didn't know that they were deployed, which shows exactly how secret the group can be when they want to. This group is not to be underestimated, and they have the tools and equipment to make themselves a deadly force. They've even earned the respect of many because of their great works. Number 7. Marcos in India. Like many groups on my list, they're a counter-terrorism group, but they're also masters of underwater warfare, which I didn't know was really a thing, unconventional warfare, which is a real classification, special reconnaissance, and more. and as many can attest to, they're really good at what they do. In fact, they're so respected that they often train with the Navy SEALs, the SAS, and Russian Special Forces on various levels, so that should really say something about how good they actually are. On a slightly more funny note, they aren't the most subtle when trying to do certain covert missions, as they've been dubbed the Bearded Army, because they apparently wear beards a lot when trying to disguise themselves in civilian areas. But hey, as long as the mission gets complete, right? Number 6. Delta Force in the United States. Now, one of the U.S. Special Forces groups that make my list is Delta Force, and they're in a league of their own in a lot of ways. The group wasn't the government's idea, or at least not the U.S. government's. Charles Beckwith was a Special Forces officer who was put onto the SAS as an exchange officer during the Malayan emergency. Upon working with the SAS and seeing how they operate, he knew that the U.S. needed to have a Special Forces group just like them. So that's when he drafted a report and stated that the United States needed an autonomous group that could counter terrorism, perform rescue missions, and also recon potential threats. Now, if nothing else, the U.S. needed this because, in his eyes, they were vulnerable. Sure enough, in the 1970s, there were numerous terrorist attacks, so then by 1977, the Delta Force would be formed. Because of the dangerous missions that the Delta Force does, there is an absolutely grueling training course that participants have to go through, all in order just to try to become an operator. The course is so grueling that at one time, 240 men tried and only 14 passed. Number 5. The SHAYETET 13 from Israel. Now, Israel's known for a lot of things, which includes Special Forces units, but the SHAYETET 13 may just be their absolute best. The group is comparable to the Navy SEALs because they excel at sea-to-land operations, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because they're also known for counterterrorism, sabotage, maritime intelligence, and hostage rescue, along with boarding ships. Now, needless to say, they're a very versatile group, but they're also ones who have proven to get the job done. It would be this group that would be launched to find and take out the terrorists who staged the attack at the Munich Olympics, and they did so, bringing peace to many nations in the process. Originally found in 1948, that makes them 70 years old, so you must be good if you can stay around for that long. Number 4. The SPETZNAZ in Russia. Now, to be clear, all special forces until Russia are defined as Spetsnaz, and because of that, there are numerous groups within the rank, which include the infamous Alpha Group. The Spetsnaz were officially formed during the Cold War, trained to be ruthless, aggressive, and show no mercy to their enemies. What's more, they were trained to be tough from top to bottom, even getting beaten by their own teammates so that they could toughen up and prove that they couldn't be broken in interrogation. However, because of their reputation for being ruthless, they've made serious compromises that other special forces wouldn't have made, including the killing of 129 hostages via chemical gas, just so they could get rid of a group of militants. Still, though, they are something to be feared. Number 3. The GIGN in Germany. Many countries have been affected by tragedy, especially the tragedy that occurred at the Munich Olympics, but Germany was one of the two that took it the hardest. After all, it did occur on their soil, and it was their police units that couldn't mobilize fast enough to save the hostages before they were killed. After the event, they swore it would never happen again, and a year later, the GIGN would be born. Designed to be an elite counterterrorism and special operations force, the GIGN have some of the best training, best weapons, and best skills ever seen in a military unit. In the 45 years since they began, the GIGN have been put out on 1,500 missions. That's an average of about 33 missions a year that they were summoned on, and you can bet they got the job done. In fact, in 2005, they actually won the SWAT World Challenge. That's where groups like SWAT and GSG-9 come together for friendly competition. More than that, though, they didn't just win the event in 2005, they won every event in 2005, and then in 2006 walked away with 50% of the prizes. They're so well respected that in 1977, after a mission, the commander of the Israeli border police called the GSG-9 the best anti-terrorist group in the world. Number 2. The Navy SEALs. Now, there are several American Special Forces groups, but when it comes to getting the job done and doing it against all odds, you can't beat the Navy SEALs. Formed in 1962, the SEALs quickly made a reputation for themselves as being the strongest, toughest, and boldest of all Special Forces units in the United States. Ever since they were officially formed during World War II, the Navy SEALs have been part of virtually every major conflict that the U.S. has been in, and unofficially a part of several other missions and wars that needed to be handled. They're trained for over a year just for the honor of being called a SEAL, and anyone who becomes one is treated like a brother to all others who wear the rank. As long as they can help it, they'll never give up. It was the SEALs who went and took out Osama bin Laden in Operation Neptune Seal, and numerous television shows and movies highlight their exploits and bravery when the official records don't. And now for number 1, the SAS in the United Kingdom. Now, you might be surprised that I, an American, put a British Special Forces group on top, yet there's actually a good reason for it. The British SAS are known as one of, if not the greatest Special Forces groups in the world today. Even more, they're also one of the oldest in the world. And if that's not enough, the group is actually the blueprint for many of the Special Forces groups around the world, including a lot of the ones I put on my list. The SAS would be founded during World War II, specifically in 1941, and weren't actually meant to be a Special Forces group, but eventually grew into one as they evolved, and so did their role in the world. The SAS are expert marksmen and were one of the first Special Forces units to use the ghillie suit and are adept enough to know multiple vital skills. While they're not exactly relevant, it was the SAS that helped to make Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which is one of the best video games ever made. You know, I'm just saying. Thanks for watching. What did you think of these Special Forces, and can you believe some of the stuff that they've done? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Be sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time on World 5.